I am sitting inside a caravan that has just done a big trip of Australia. This caravan actually belongs to longtime Goldstream RV employee, Mitch Damyon. Now this is a 1760 RECD Rhino, that's rear ensuite centre door Rhino. Now I'm sitting with Mitch, the caravan's freshly back from this big trip. Now Mitch, mate, tell us about the trip.
An unbelievable trip, something everyone should do once in their lifetime for sure. It's just so much to see, and we were just sort of discussing before, even you throwing out a few names that I've missed along the way.
Now, what was your favourite part? So you went really straight up the middle, and then you hung a left and you went down through the Gibb River Road, and you saw Kununurra and Equestra. What's your favourite?
Certainly the Gibb was, the couple of weeks we spent on the Gibb was an awesome time. It's just so much to see, the gorges, the water holes. Just every day you can, just see something different.
So this particular caravan, is there anything that didn't perform as expected?
Well, as you can see it, Max, this is in its raw state. We've only just come back. It's had a quick sweep out, and we've taken out a few of our belongings and stuff like that, clothes and whatever. But open the cupboard and there's still food and everything in the cupboard. So,
well, I mean, I've had a quick look around, Mitch, and everything looks like it's holding together. I'm not seeing anything that's obviously broken.
Definitely, the van stood up to everything we threw at it, and we threw a fair bit at it.
All right, well, tell us a little bit about that. You did the UDAD as well.
We started off on the dirt roads, the UDAD, done the full length of that, and then we sort of head back to Cooper Pedy for a few days, up to Uluru, around the Morini Loop, up around sort of Kakadu, the top end area, back down across the Gibb, into a few of the mining roads, into Tom Price along the railway access roads, and out again.
There would have been a lot of free camping involved in that. Now remind me, what's the 12-volt system on this van?
This has got the 300 amp lithium with the BM Pro 35 HA unit in it, and a 3000 watt inverter.
Okay, how did you find that went, powering your aircon? I'd imagine you use your aircon a fair bit.
The aircon was used a fair bit. We used it a couple of times on the 12-volt system, but only for an hour or so, just to take the edge off.
And it worked, and it was all good?
Yeah, definitely. We've got the inverted air conditioner on the roof, so that's all compatible with the 3000 watt inverter on the van and the battery size.
Now you got some solar on the roof as well. How did those panels go charging up your lithium system?
Pretty quickly. There was one time on the Gibb that we happened to use the air fryer, which brought the batteries down a little bit. I think the lowest we got was probably about 50%. But the solar and also a portable blanket when you were parked up under a tree for a few days, it kept it at between 90 and 100% all day. Any lessons that you particularly learned that you can share with our viewers? Lessons learned is take your time. It takes a little bit to slow down after coming out of work for so long. Once you slow down, you can start to enjoy the surroundings.
Now you were towing it with your big Y62 Patrol. How'd you go for fuel?
Actually just done the fuel economy. For the whole trip, it averaged out at 20.89 litres per 100. Before we left on day one of our leaving home, I called into work, filled everything up with water and put it over the weighbridge, and I had 34 kilos spare left on the van. I was never going to be any more loaded than what we were at that time. For the best part of the trip, towing around 3 tonne worth of van, it was fairly reasonable fuel economy.
Okay, can we have a little look around the caravan? You can show me, the things that you found particularly good, the things that worked, the seals on the locker doors, that sort of thing.
So Max, this is our new ensuite that we've just done for our 2024 models, with a bit of a shaving cabinet with a bit of storage in behind it and some drawers. Also put the washing machine in this one. Unbelievable. Just would not do a trip without a washing machine in it again. The queues in caravan parks lining up to use washers was just huge, and my wife said, thank you for putting that in.
Tell us about that Nature's Head composting toilet.
First time I've used one, it got emptied once in 4 months, and it probably didn't even need to be done at that stage. It wasn't used full time, but it was used regularly. You certainly weren't doing the walk of shame carrying a cassette over to a dump point. So as you can see, Max, this is as it's come off, 22,000 K. Fridge is, 100% in place. Microwave is still there.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's not unusual, even in, so-called off-road caravans, that when they're used in those conditions, you climb inside and you find that a cabinet door has come loose or it's a bit askew, but nothing like that.
Nothing at all. Cabinetry 100%. Everything opens, everything closes.
All your appliances, everything worked?
Everything worked.
Now, speaking of appliances, you fitted the ARL dust reduction system. That's the electric one. You flick a switch and it pressurises the van. Tell us about that.
Wouldn't have done the roads that we did without one. You know, you'd be spending an hour or 2 hours every day, you know, wiping out dust.
Well, let's have a look. I reckon if we look in the seals at the door, we'll probably see something, right?
For sure.
So the ARL system, you can kind of see here, I guess, a bit of a demonstration. What have we got here? A bit of red dust.
Probably a little bit of Gibb River Road red dust sitting in there. But the ARL was simply, you know, flick a switch, starts up, close the door and drive away. And as you can see, it does keep everything out.
Keeps the dust on the outside of the van where it belongs. So when you stepped inside, you actually didn't see any dust everywhere.
Not even in the step area. It's probably a little bit around the hinges.
Now, Goldstream, you guys also fit like a mudguard system that goes the full length or the full width of the caravan.
We've done a couple for ourselves. The stone guard up the front certainly helps protect the front of the van a little bit, but we've also, you know, one Sean took away up to Arnhem Land a couple of years ago. He sort of come up with this idea. He said, put it on, it will save a lot of damage. And as you can see by the state of the mud flaps, it's taken a beating, which has helped, you know, without the suspension taking a beating.
How'd you go with the barbecue?
The little Ziggy Nomad got used nearly every day.
So I guess one thing people need to be aware of is that, you know, remote Australia can be a little bit brutal on your equipment.
Oh, definitely.
And this probably is a good example of that. So that's the paint that was on the chassis and it's not there anymore.
It's gone. You know, considering the roads we happened to do and the rocks that were on the roads, some of them were just absolutely huge, and it did get knocked around, but simply I think we'll just Raptor-coat the chassis this time round and see how we go from there. But certainly the upkeep on chassis and paintwork's just an ongoing story wherever you go.
So before you set off on this trip, obviously you would have put a lot of thought into what you need and what you want in your caravan, but now that you've done a big trip with it, is there anything you regret or anything that you might change?
Definitely not. The layout worked great for us. Only being the two of us, we didn't, you know, the plan was never to be living in the van, you know, full time on the road. It was something used as we're tripping. So, we'll, you know, an overnight here, a couple of days there, you know, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 days elsewhere. Our living was outside or driving to the next destination. The fact that it stood up to everything we threw at it and you know, stood up to it well. There isn't just one thing that stands out that we had any issues with at all. You know, we pointed in that north direction and that's where it followed.
How many Ks did you do?
Nearly 22,000.
22,000 Ks, and a lot of that would have been on unmade roads like this.
Look, certainly a percentage of it was. It wasn't a lot. From your UDADs to your Morini loops to your Gibb Rivers, and all those roads is a small percentage of what you do, but they're probably the most enjoyable parts of the trips as well.
Have you done much work to the back of your four-wheel drive? What have you got in here?
Well, I have set it up for a little bit more touring, you know, with the Clearview mirrors on it. I've also put a 150 amp slimline battery in the back, which keeps the fridge going. The fridge hasn't come out of the car in 5 months it's been running. Also, you know, I've got it set up where I've got the air compressor running off that slimline battery because tyres were up and down continually.
Now, speaking of tyres and suspension, etc., last time we spoke about your van, you weren't sure if whether or not you should have gone the airbag setup.
Yep.
How do you feel now that you've been there, you've done the trip?
Yep. Look, it could have been handy in a couple of spots, but in most places it wasn't an issue. You know, it was, you know, roll it up onto a block of wood on one side and you're fairly level. Most places you got to, you're easily able to level it up. The ATX Cruise Master, you know, it's a great soft ride on the van, and, you know, heading over those corrugations, everywhere you went on a dirt road, it was horrific. It stood up to everything you threw at it.
Final question is, when are you going to hit the road again?
Love to be hitting the road sooner than later. Possibly next year, we'll see if we can get away. The kids are actually going to borrow it, you know, in a couple of weeks' time, and they're just going to go for a quick holiday themselves. The only thing is I'll lose my car as well.